All right. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Rainbow Pill. It's like the red pill or the black pill, but with hope. And it's very anti despair. We are just kind of, we're still under the heading of gluten free. I'm still very much a galoot here, kind of clumsily bumbling my way into, what I see as the truth and what I see as right. Today, we're going to talk about nationalism, what that means, what it is, how it, reflects on, politics and decision making, how it reflects on the family, particularly. So, kind of defining what I think nationalism is as a galoot myself, I see nationalism as really an extension throughout time and space of the family growing. So it really has that root to it of NAT or natio, natio, really meaning birth. You talk about natal, prenatal, things like that. Um, that really is what nationalism is to me. It doesn't, and a lot of this thinking I got from Vox Day. He has a blog that really helped clarify a lot of these ideas on nationalism. It's voxday.blogspot.com. But the idea that nationalism is not defined by pieces of paper. A tough truth, a pill, so to speak, is the fact that many of us in America aren't the so-called Americans that we believe ourselves to be. Again, this goes back to the idea of nationalism as relating to birth. Do you descend from those who created this nation, this lineage? And so then it kind of makes you ask yourself, well, what is my role then in this place called America? And that's a great question. As being within this nation and being a nationalist, uh, which I consider myself to be, kind of to continue in this nationalist idea and live in the place that I do, I should really support the values of the nation that I'm a part of. So hopefully that does a good enough job of explaining kind of what I see nationalism as. It's a lineage, it's an investment, it's values and rules for future birth in a location over a connected group of people. Uh, it was carved out by war. Um, that like all nations have been. That the ones that have survived at some point have fought for their survival. Um, and you could argue that there's really two nations inhabiting this space within the geographical location of the United States, and that would be Native Americans, so to speak, and then, well, non-Native Americans, right? Generally, English are the ones who really put the flag in the ground, so to speak, to make this nation. But so there's kind of those two, but I really see, you know, the Americans came in and by force and sometimes by just natural progression of the populace really carved out their new thing. And unfortunately relegated the Native Americans, who I would say also had claim to their own. They had smaller Indian nations and things like that throughout the country, but really relegated those to the side. But they still exist. And I think in a way, those are nationalities that inhabit the same area. So, where do we go with this? What's the Catholic Christian perspective to this? So, obviously, we all understand families in terms of Speaking of families, this is Lillian. Say hi to the camera. Hi. So we all have families, and when we have families, we need to, we don't, maybe under Christ, we are all one family. But I am certainly not part of my friend's family or the neighbor in the next house over. Um, we're not of the same family, and to to attempt to be is silly, and I think it can cause some problems. So sorry for the baby in the background. Um, but the same thing, in my opinion, goes with nations. Each each mother and father and child um, group, in this general community of mine, all, ideally is looking to God the Father for their moral, spiritual guidance. Uh, but they are not all, considering themselves as part of the same unit as they pursue that moral, spiritual guidance of God the Father. The same, I think, is important for nations in the world. I think it's godly for nations in the world to exist in their own units as they pursue, ideally, they're pursuing God. They also have, like we as individuals or we as families, a God built in freedom to turn away from God, maybe even an inclination to turn away from God. And the hope is that, a nation that I want to be a part of, at least, or support, is headed towards God, is headed towards the truth, is headed towards what is good and what is right. And that, if it's not, you're either trying to change it, overthrow it, remake it, or get out of there. And I think if we have a world of nations with people invested in that process, um, it is, it hastens our approach to a more heavenly world, at least. Um, so that's kind of where I come from. Nationalism. When I look at globalism, again, ideally, it's almost like God is above the this organization of nations. And I think even in one of the Gospels, when he's talking to Pontius Pilate, he's essentially telling Pontius Pilate how, as the kingdom of man is secondary. Um, so that's how I see that this national divisions across the world are secondary to the supremacy of God and Jesus Christ. But so is the family, you could say, and in that way we can pursue God within our nations. So we bring it back to the rainbow pill, meaning always looking for a positive outlook, a despair-free outlook, um, hope, hope for the future. That um, national ideas can help us, approach a more godly world, if you will. And there are some fun developments. And for instance, both Germany and Ireland, um, two places that I I've been tempted to despair about, shall we say, uh, just had some really great, successful nationalist election wins, and that's really great. Other places like Hungary, uh, where's the other? Poland, and Italy also have a rising national sentiment. Of course, I would say the US under Donald Trump has a degree of nationalism that has been able to shine forth. It's almost like I was reading Ann Coulter or listening to an interview, I should say, and she explained how it's almost like Trump just wandered into the vein of border infrastructure that he did by creating this meme of the wall, which wasn't obviously he hasn't fulfilled that commitment. But the point is that Americans cared about it, and that's the hope that we keep a border around our nation like we keep a border around our family, so that our family and or our nation can go out and benefit the world, can remedy things within the world, can help the people within the nation. When we look around at just the broken minded, the homeless, the sick, the consumed by sin people in our country, um, having a nation that is not always accepting new non-birthed people into it, and thereby increasing a burden that takes away from helping those burdened already within our country. Those are the ideas of hope that it's great to see around the world, um, are being are coming to the forefront, are finding some success, are finding some purchase, are finding some footholds, and I think it's going to keep coming because I think it's a natural good to have nations in this world, and I think people subconsciously realize that if they haven't completely given into some of the progressive, we got to be nice um, to everyone with no end in sight, unlimited compassion without the perspective of the sustainability of compassion. So that is the hopeful look at nationalism. Again, this is all under the mantra of Galutin, um, not the thing in bread, but big clumsy Galut who wanders into a place. I'll take the mantra from Owen Benjamin, a guy I really respect. That is, I may be wrong, but I'm not lying. So please, if I'm wrong, if you see that some of the ideas I have currently are a little bit off, I want to know about it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. All that good stuff, and hopefully I'll be able to provide some more good stumbles into important and good current topics like this sooner rather than later. All right, that's it for today.